right. Welcome everyone to this next episode. I guess we could start calling them episodes of Onform webinar. We are going over some really neat stuff today. We're calling it, coining the phrase Onform Studio Setup. And with me, my name is Nate Hairgrove, Director of Business Development here at Onform. With me is Gear Fisher, our co-founder and CEO of the company, and I think we're becoming familiar faces, Gear.
Well,
So
if
we're
that means people are watching more than once, thank you very much. Appreciate that. We try and make
exactly.
these informative, so I think we've got some cool stuff to show today.
We certainly do, and I'm excited to get into this. So without further ado, we're going to jump in here and let's go over some housekeeping things. One thing that we always let everyone know is that we are recording this. We will be posting it to our YouTube channel, and I think we'll have some links from some of our other social media channels. So this will be recorded, allowing you time to replay it at your own convenience. Another thing that we always comment on is in the very bottom, there's a Q&A section. And that's where you can submit questions. And while Gear's doing a lot of the demoing, I'll be monitoring those. And we have someone else, Sarah, who's going to help monitor those and hopefully get those questions answered in a timely fashion. And we have something new we're actually throwing up. We're going to have a link to some of the products we'll be showing today. And I'll show you kind of what that looks like here in just a second on these slides, but we're going to add the link to our chat function so everyone can have that link and go get any products that they may need. So let's jump into what we're going to cover today, Gear. We're going to talk about all things studio. We're talking from replacing maybe a legacy system or setting up a brand new studio. I love this because it's all done from mobile devices. Kind of gone are the days of spending tens of thousands of dollars on cameras and spending, I mean, how much are we getting phones now? $600-800, something like that, used even cheaper. You know, I'm excited to show everyone the indoor studio setup. We're going to talk about some of the equipment. We're going to talk about different angles that we can record from. I know we've touched on that in the past, but showing how it is all connected. And then we're going to take it in a backpack. We're going to go outdoors with it. Not you. We're not taking you outside, but we're going to definitely show how this can be taken outside. Let's jump right in. Let's start with the setup. What's interesting about this is that you have to start within Onform. We've got to give and grant certain permissions inside of Onform. And so I'm going to cover this slide here, Gear. We're going to talk about that. We're going to jump into our Amazon, and then I'm going to kick it over to you. So first things first, inside of the Onform settings, on your home page up near your profile, you're going to hit that little settings wheel, and that's going to open up our settings within Onform. You tap on the privacy button at the very top, and it'll kick you into the allowable local network. We need to make sure that that's turned on. Like you can see on the screen here, it needs to be toggled to green. That's a very key piece that has to be turned on so that all of the stuff we're going to show today actually works. And if we need to come back to that, Gear, and maybe talk through that again, let's do that. And then here is our Amazon link, our Amazon page. I'm going to throw a link in just a second into our chat, but we have linked almost everything, I believe, that we're going to show today. If not, we can add a few more, but what you would need for an indoor wired setup, or if you want to throw it in one of your backpacks and take it outside, what you might use for an outdoor wired setup. And I'm excited to kind of go through both of those things today. So Gear, without further ado, can I jump over to you? And I know you got some wires and some connectors and all that kind of stuff. And I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen sharing. And I think it's just us now. So let's jump in and maybe start to take it away. Show us what an indoor wired setup would look like.
Thanks, Nate. So the big difference here is we have touched on our wireless multicam studio in the past. In fact, it's one of our most popular videos on our YouTube channel. And our wireless setup works amazing. But there are also some benefits to doing a wired setup. And so for the first time, we're actually going to show everyone here how to do a wired setup. Those benefits are you can leave it set up all day long. Your cameras, your auxiliary devices that you're going to use for the down the line and face on will be charging the entire day. So you can use this literally all day long without having to worry about recharging and batteries, et cetera, et cetera. Also, the reality is a wired setup is really reliable. You're not worried about dropouts and Wi-Fi interference, et cetera, et cetera. It's certainly a little bit less mobile, but it's also just, really robust. So reliability and the fact that your devices stay powered are key benefits. Also, depending on the devices that you use, it's very flexible. We use iOS devices for each of our cameras, anything from an iPhone 13 to an iPhone 16 or iPads as well. And so you can use a combination of iOS devices in here. And I'm gonna go through that in more detail. Like I said, I've touched on this before, but today we're gonna dive in and make sure everyone gets what's possible here. So we're talking about a wired setup. We're all familiar with networking to some degree. You do not have to be a networking expert to figure this out. Let me show you the sophistication required here. So what we're gonna show today, this is a $50 networking switch, okay? This is kind of the core component that's going to allow each camera to talk to each other. So in our situation that I'm going to show here in just a few minutes, I've got 3 devices, 2 iPhones acting as remote cameras and an iPad acting as kind of my control device. We're replacing the setup where you have a Windows computer sitting on a desk in the back corner. That's wired into fixed mounted cameras, right? Like this is a system that can easily replace a legacy indoor studio setup like that. And so a $50 wire switch, I plug that into the power and then I take my Cat 6 cable, all right? And I'm literally gonna just plug this in here. This is gonna run over to a phone, and this is another key component. This is a power over Ethernet adapter. So this particular switch that I just showed is capable not only of the networking information, sending signals back and forth, it also sends out a power signal, so it's charging your device while it's plugged in. So I'm gonna take the other end of that cable that I just plugged into the switch, I'm gonna plug it into one side of this adapter, and then that's just a standard USB-C plug, and that's gonna plug right into my phone or my iPad. That is the level of networking expert you have to be in order to figure this out. So we now have the switch plugged into our little power over Ethernet adapter, and that adapter is going to plug into our phone. The phones are going to act as the cameras for us. Let me go ahead and share my iPad screen, and I'm going to actually show you this. We purposely wired this up so you can see all these things in our studio here. So I'm going to share my iPad screen. And if the Zoom gods are happy, which they apparently have. All right, so here we are. What you're seeing right now is the view from my iPad itself, okay? And I have my iPad sitting here on my desk. And bear with me because Zoom sometimes does not play nice when also doing camera recording. So apparently sometimes the Zoom will drop out, but fear not, it's working just fine over here on my iPad. So I'm holding my iPad, as you can see, because I want to show you the setup that we've created here in the studio. That's that little network switch plugged into power. It's running this cable right here. The far cable is connected into the Wi-Fi router of our studio here. And then the other cable is plugged into that iPhone, which is an iPhone 15 in our case. Okay, and you can see the adapter. And then I also have a secondary device sitting here on the desk, which is another iPhone plugged into using a cable. And then obviously I have the third device, which is an iPad sitting here at my desk. So for all intents and purposes, this iPad is really acting like that Windows computer in the background. It's the central point, and it's taking the video feed from the 2 remote cameras into the iPad, and in this case, giving me 3 angles: the iPad view, the face-on view, and the down-the-line view. So what I just showed you is the extent of what we have to plug in. But now the beauty of that is, as you can see, I'm getting the remote feed from both of these devices here. These are the 2 iPhones, and this is the iPad view. I can also change that using our control device option. I'll tap that, which turns off the iPad camera, and it leaves me with just the view from face on and down the line. This is the standard typical view in almost every studio on the planet that you would expect to see when using this sort of setup. Now, in addition, because I'm using Zoom to show the world my screen of the iPad, I would also typically be using a TV inside the studio, such that I have a TV, for example, here in the studio, which would be used to show the student the screen of my iPad. And in this case, we are projecting the screen of the iPad to the Zoom so everybody can see it. But normally you'd be using AirPlay to project the screen of the iPad onto that TV. Okay, I just want everybody to understand, like, pretty much every studio has the big flat screen TVs. I would normally be projecting my iPad onto that flat screen TV in the studio. Instead, I'm projecting it to Zoom so you can see it. Is that making sense? Let me pause and see if there's any questions here so far.
Let me fire some questions at you, Gear. This is a good one, and I know you touched on it earlier. Will the devices stay on when wired?
Yeah, so it's super cool. When the iPhone is plugged in to power, all I do is go in and turn on the Do Not Disturb option, and it will just stay on permanently. It will, you turn off the notifications so it's not being interrupted, but they will stay on and stay charged for the whole entire day. So I just leave the two remotes in auxiliary mode, which I'm going to show you in a minute. And yes, they will basically function as remote cameras for the entire day.
Perfect. Another one I have is, and this is a good question. It's something that we've come across multiple times in our conversations with coaches, is any chance you'll release a Windows version so we can use normal swing cameras?
I like that question. We have done some experimenting there. Let's just say maybe.
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yep.
I can't say yes. I can't say no. But we are certainly investigating that.
Right. That's the perfect response for that, because it's worth testing, it's worth trying and seeing if it could be done or not. So that's kind of the beauty of Onform, is we're going to continue to test and try and see where it takes us. So perfect. Thanks for helping us get set up, talking through some of the wires. Why don't we jump in next to, I think our next part was we wanted to talk about just the recording modes. Does that sound right?
Let's try it. So happen to have with us our Onform ambassador. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my camera again. And everybody, welcome Sam Saunders to the studio. So he's going to be our swing model as always, and we're always envious of Sam's swing. So good to have you here. So once again, I've got my iPad set up. I'm taking the feed from the two remote cameras. I like control iPad mode, the control device, the best. So check this out. I'm going to go into control device mode. So we now have a perfect face on and down the line. And down here in the corner are our recording modes. I'm currently on manual. So Sam, let's go ahead and, since you're super warmed up on all, let's go ahead and just have you take a swing and go ahead and hit one. And I'll record that. All right. So a couple things to notice. It only took a couple of seconds to fetch the two remote videos from the auxiliary cameras, which are currently recording at 240 FPS, back to my iPad for playback. So here's Sam. I can scroll through here and we get a great side-by-side video. Now, of course, I can do the line drawings and whatever else I want interacting. And I can even hold my iPad because, in fact, what I'm doing right now is my iPad is in a mixed wired and wireless scenario. I'm using the Wi-Fi of the normal studio. So if I wanted, I could carry my iPad anywhere I want and do all the line drawings and interaction, working with Sam, maybe helping him with his grip, etc. I'm going to stay back here behind the camera. But this cable you see is simply plugged into my laptop for the purposes of projecting my screen through Zoom. But this iPad is completely wireless. So we're actually using wireless iPad, wired devices in the network for a perfect scenario. I could certainly plug in my iPad wired, right? It doesn't matter, but that just means now I'm tethered to the iPad wire. So this is an incredibly flexible setup with the additional benefit over a traditional or legacy system that I can use that iPad and move around and be in front of him and draw. And he would normally be seeing all the drawings and everything I do on the screen in front of him, right? In the studio. Is that making sense for you so far?
Yeah,
Cool.
it's the desktop in your hand now, right? You're no longer tethered and stuck behind the desktop.
That's right. Now, I skipped over something, a little bit of a setup issue. What we have is the iPad in any one of our manual, one tap modes, etc. One of the modes of the iPhone, if you go into the camera, and you'll see way at the very bottom is auxiliary cam. I just scrolled to it on my iPad. Both of the iPhones are set up as an auxiliary device. Okay, so that's what allows the iPad. On the iPad, you choose any one of the normal modes. And on the iPhones, or the remote cameras, if you will, you set them to auxiliary. And they automatically find and pair with the primary device, which is in manual or one tap, etc. Okay, so that's a key piece I just jumped straight over because we already had it set up here and it's so easy to just get it going. Did I miss anything on that initial setup, Nate?
No, you hit the nail on the head actually, because it's how you and I have described it for golf coaches is start with the auxiliary. Start with your face on auxiliary, start with your down the line auxiliary, then go get your manual one tap, your primary, if you will, iPad. And that just kind of helps eliminate some confusion between that. So that was perfect.
Exactly. Now, I can jump out of the camera mode. So if I close out of here, I'm back to my regular library. I could go back into the video that I just took of Sam. You'll notice it saved the drawing lines, etc. I can do, zoom in and do whatever analysis I'd like. I dismiss that. And when I click back on the camera, it will immediately pick up in the mode that it was just on. Notice I didn't have to select control device. It immediately pairs with the two auxiliaries. So it's very fluid to move between, let's say, deep analysis and just right back into your lesson with that student. Our goal here is fast, easy, and accurate, and we want to get out of your way so that you can do your coaching. You're not waiting for the app to catch up. We remember that setting, and it's just right back to it. Now, I'm going to switch camera modes to one tap. Now, I love talking about one tap, and I want to just make the point, all of our modes work with Multicam. And the beauty here is that the iPad can be in any one of these modes. The remote cameras just stay there in auxiliary, right? So you don't even have to touch them the rest of the day. So Sam, what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna actually press the record button when he impacts the ball. Go ahead and take a swing. And maybe he's gonna rehearse a little bit. I have no idea when he's actually gonna record. Okay, he's stretching out. He's gonna hit that. I don't know. So he takes a swing. I actually hit the button a second or so after he hit the ball. I now open up the video and you'll see, thank you, camera. I try one more time.
All right, I try. I mess with you with all those rehearsals.
That's all right. So I'm going to hit record when he impacts the ball. It actually goes back in time a couple seconds and forward in time a couple seconds to fetch the video. And we can pull up a perfect video of his swing there. So that will work with Multicam. The next one is auto detect. So in auto detect mode, I'm now in full hands-free mode, right? I can even be in the non-control device mode where I could be using all three angles to capture. But if I switch to control device, it now is using the auxiliaries to sense when Sam is in the picture and takes a swing. So completely hands-free, go ahead and take a swing, Sam. You'll see the green bar around the edge of the video. And there is the video that he just captured, all from the auto detect. I can change the layout, by the way, down in these corners. When I'm looking at a video, the layout button down here lets me go between 1 and 2 panel view. The last time I used auto capture, it was in 1 panel view. So that just captured in auto capture. You'll see here it'll find them again. I can also use launch monitor mode. Now, I happen to have a full swing kit sitting down there, sitting in screen mode. This is connected via Bluetooth, so you can use multicam in using our full swing kit interactivity as well. Let's give this a try. Go ahead and take a swing.
That's why I want the numbers to look good, right?
So give it a few seconds. The full swing will recognize the swing, and it pulls it up, again, totally hands-free. And here's all of the launch data of the ball and club. And you'll notice, just to give you a little layout again, over here we can choose the angles that we want to see. And because this was done in auto detect, currently you'd need to record in auto detect to get our 3D capability. So if I tap on 3D, it'll also generate a 3D avatar of Sam's swing. So auto detect, multicam, control device is what I was just doing there. Now you see full swing in 3D, and I can go back to the layout and even change this to like 3 panel view so that I can simultaneously get face on, down the line, and the full 3D view, which gives me the ability to do things like turn on hand path and slide and sway. So I can see that hand path, rotate that around as needed, and we'll be bringing more visualizations up. Now it looks like Zoom has decided to stop working. I always like to show it's still working here, but Zoom sometimes gets mad. So I'm just gonna re-share my Zoom screen.
Zoom has a mind of its own at times, Gear. I've had the same thing happen when I'm doing the recordings. It acts up. Yep. This is a perfect pause if we can. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, let's pause and take some more questions.
Awesome. One question I had was, how long of a delay needs to happen between auto detect swings?
You know, it's usually just a few seconds. It's really just enough time for the system to grab the swings from the auxiliary cameras and, you know, display it on screen. I would say 5 seconds is a typical, it's really not much more than that. And it could be less, just depends on how fast your device is too. But, you know, what we've seen is in a typical lesson, you know, you're taking swings as directed by the coach. If you're out on the range, you might be hammering balls more frequently than that. But 5 seconds is pretty fast in between shot, watch ball flight, regroup, grab another ball, set it up, waggle around, take a swing.
Yeah, I've found for me, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go talk right there. They can see you right there.
That's a good question from my end too, because I've actually found when I'm practicing, whether it's outside or on my simulator in the basement, when I'm practicing on auto detect, the timing is actually perfect, because if I want to delete the swing, I can just audibly say, delete that swing, or I can give feedback on what I want. And I find that I stay in my normal rhythm of wanting to hit balls. I'm never waiting on auto detect to be ready for me to make my next swing. So it really kind of works in the cadence of a normal practice session.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because again, we're trying to make this as fast as possible. If you have an older device, and our software will sense whether or not you have hardware equipped enough to do auto detect. If you don't see auto detect, it's because you have a really old iPad or a really old iPhone. But anything, again, iPhone 13 or newer should be fine. You can use it on older devices. I'm just saying, word of caution, you might take a little bit more time. There's a lot of computing power going on in between there.
Gear, you're touching on some things, and these questions are coming in fast and furious, so I'm trying to answer them. One thing you just mentioned was the age of iPad or iPhone. You just touched on the iPhone. We suggest a 13 or newer. What about iPads?
So you can use almost any device that is able to update to iOS 18. Okay, so that's roughly a 6 or 7-year-old iPad. But recommended, I would say an iPad that is 2020 or newer, or an iPad Pro that is 2020 or newer. You have to have a minimum A13 Bionic chip, okay, to do things like 3D, enough processing power to fetch the side videos. What I have found with people with older devices, I'm running our 2 auxiliary cameras at 240 FPS. We're transferring hundreds of megabytes of videos over the wire and sucking those into the iPad and doing a ton of computing here, all on mobile devices.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an older device, change that down to 120 FPS or 60 FPS. It drastically reduces the load on the network and on the computational engine of the devices. So try lowering the FPS. And by the way, I'm talking about the setting inside the camera. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You go back here for right here. You can change the different resolution and FPS. This is of the iPad camera right now, but you can control this over on the 2 auxiliary devices yourself and change to a lower resolution or FPS, and it'll make things snappier and faster.
Perfect. Let me throw another one at you before we continue on. I had 4 different questions about launch monitors, and currently we work with the Garmin R10, which is the small one that you can get. I want to, it's $400 or $500 somewhere in there. And then what you're seeing right here is the full swing kit, which we've partnered with both of those. So to answer those quickly, we would love to work with all launch monitors out there. We are having conversations and hoping to maybe add a few in the near future. It'd be fun, but we'll see where those go. Currently, it's full swing kit and the Garmin R10. Another question I had for you, Gear, is on the auto video playback, right after the auto detection. What it's interesting when you maybe, like Sam kind of alluded to this in his own practice, right? When he's downstairs in the simulator practicing, what's the auto playback look like for a student?
It looks the same. Like, let's do one here. So I'm going to do the same. I mean, in a student scenario, it's slightly different because students typically don't have multicam. If they do, then it'll look exactly like what you're about to see. But even if you have a single device, it will auto capture your swing and go up and play back in slow motion the swing. And you could be airplaying that to a TV. So every swing, you turn around and you look at the TV and there's your swing played back in slow motion. And you can adjust that playback speed by opening a video. And if you go down here in the lower left corner and change to like half playback speed, it will use that setting in the playback setting for auto detect. So for example, I'll choose half playback speed. Sam, we're going to try another swing here. I'm going to capture all 3 angles just for the heck of it. Go ahead and take a swing. So in this case, it's using the iPad's camera to sense the swing. And in a couple of seconds, that fast, it transferred the 2 swings from the auxiliary devices and it's playing it back in half speed. Okay. And that's what a student would see. And I can also, when I adjust these settings here of the angles, so angle 1, angle 2, and angle 3, it'll remember that for the next swing as well. Now notice the green line is still going in auto detect. It's still watching Sam. So I'm not going to touch anything. Sam, go ahead and take another swing. And another couple of seconds later, it's going to recycle and show that swing. And there it goes. Okay.
Hey, Gear, I got one for you. This is actually very fitting to what you're doing right now. It said auto detect played 3 of the same view. What I think they're referencing is that auto detect is the trigger for the other 2 devices. The primary is auto detect. The primary can be manual or one tap, but our primary now is auto detect. You want to elaborate on that one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more. So there's the last swing of Sam. The currently what's happening when I'm using the iPad camera, right? I'm putting my fingers there just to show. This is the iPad view. It's using this view as the trigger for the others as well. When I go into control device mode, right, it's going to turn off the iPad camera. It's now relying on the other devices. In fact, it's using the face on view. Sam, go ahead and take a swing. So it's now relying on the auxiliary camera as the trigger with auto detect. And if the demo gods are nice to me, and we all count to 5, it's going to come up here and show that video in playback. Again, Zoom is
not friendly today, is it?
I'm going to give it 2 more seconds here. That was the previous one. Yeah, it's not happy that Zoom is plugged in here, but suffice to say, when you're in auto detect mode using control device, it will use one of the remotes as the trigger for the camera.
Perfect.
What other questions do we have, Nate?
Oh my word, my fingers are, you'd think I'm typing 60 words a minute, which I can't. I'm doing my best here. Must all cameras or iPads be set to the same FPS?
Good question. No, they don't actually have to be. Note that though, when we display the videos side by side, we have to use the lowest common denominator. So let's say you have one camera at 60 FPS and another at 240. If you're recording independently, you're going to get 240 on one and 60 on the other. And in fact, in the multicam recording, you're going to record a 240 raw file and a 60 FPS raw file. But when they get displayed together, we have to go to the lowest common denominator between those two. And so it's going to play back at 60 FPS. So certainly a best practice is to set both cameras at the same FPS.
Love it. How about this one? This is an easy one, but I love it. It's something that I think you and I take for granted. Can you go to Sam's recent video? Any one that you got there. How'd you zoom in, Gear? How'd you zoom in on those? Yeah.
Pinch zoom. So
Yeah.
I'm just literally pinch zooming on any of these videos, just like you would any other photo or video.
Like I said, sometimes we take it for granted, but we forget some of the simple things, and that's such a good question.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a really powerful one. And I can pinch zoom into this. I can change the angles over here, right? So, and then I can change the layout because maybe I don't like all 3 views at once. I'd go to 2-panel view. So now I can go side by side and maybe take the 3rd angle here and the face on one there. So it's incredibly flexible and powerful how you can control what you want. And then it remembers that setting the next time you open a video. So if I go and open this next video, it stays in that mode. This has also been a common question with our 3D capability. You don't always necessarily want 3D generated in real time every single time, especially during auto capture, right? It takes a ton of computation, takes 5-10 seconds. So if you make your display not include the 3D view, it won't compute 3D while you're doing auto capture. So it's super simple. It's maybe a little bit like, oh, that's all it took. But all you have to do is set your view panel, your layout, to not include 3D. And then every time after that, auto capture won't compute 3D, but it's on demand anytime you want by just going down here and tapping 3D, and it'll compute the 3D. Once it does compute 3D, it won't have to recompute it in the future. It'll instantly pull that up. But you can see how fast we are able to compute 3D. And this is a newer iPad, but it's only a few seconds.
Love that. One thing that I would put a cherry on top of that is make sure that we are running the latest version of Onform. I know that you and I have had a couple people reach out saying, I'm not able to see 3D. Well, 2 things. 1, make sure you have the latest version of Onform. And 2, make sure you're recording in auto detect. Maybe you want to share a little bit more about that, Gear. I feel like that's something that our support team has certainly seen some inquiries come in about that.
Yeah. Just to get a 3D capability, number 1, you have to have a little bit of a newer device. Again, iPhone, you can actually do it with a 12 or newer. 12 is a little slower. But you need to be recording in the auto detect mode. And if you are doing multicam, it's also a good reminder here, by the way. Let me show you where to check that setting. So if I go and tap on my profile icon and then I tap on the help icon, I can see the version. This is the latest version in the App Store, 4.064. And it is really important that all devices in a multicam setup are on the same version of the app. And you'll want them on the most recent version out of the App Store. Okay.
Awesome. So I think we have covered off on a lot of questions, either live or I've tried to answer a bunch that are sitting there. We've covered off on our multi-angle. We've covered off on all of our wired indoor setup. And if there's anything else you wanted to toss in there, certainly interrupt me here. But I'd love to say, can we package all this fun stuff up in a backpack in a studio? That's kind of a phrase I think you and I have ran with a little bit. How do we take this outdoors?
Yeah, check this out. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen just so I can show a little bit more show and tell here. So, super cool thing. Here we are in a wired setup. There's multiple configurations. In a wired setup, I happen to have plugged one of the wires into my Wi-Fi router. You guys will have a Wi-Fi router similar to this. You can also plug it right into the back here. And then depending on the speed of everything, it may work super fast. It will most definitely work quite well. I can also just use this switch. I'm just reiterating. I can only use this switch. I don't even have to have this on the internet, right? So I could be offline using just the switch with the wires plugged in. That's another option. But a really cool option here that has just really not been possible until we've kind of come out with it is to take this exact setup, meaning the iPhones as auxiliary cameras, the iRange monopod sticks that are holding them or tripods, and walk outside on the range and use the exact same setup outdoors. And the real key to that is this simple setup right here. I feel like Steve Jobs just a little bit.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. If you had all black on, it'd be a Steve Jobs moment. That was awesome.
So what do we have here? If we want to go totally wireless, this is a standard cell phone battery charger. On the back, it's got the little plugs. You guys have bought every one of these. Everybody on this call has done this. The key here is you want one that has 20-watt power, okay? 20-watt power is necessary to charge a full-on iPad and other things. But this little beauty, this is a Wi-Fi 6 router. It's about $100, Axiom GL iNet. We'll have links to this both here and on our website. This is a little Wi-Fi router that I can power off of my little battery pack by plugging in the USB-C right into the power cord. And this thing is going to turn on and it's going to create a private Wi-Fi network. Okay, so it's not connected to the internet. This is not a mobile hotspot from Verizon. Okay, this is just a portable Wi-Fi router that you can take anywhere, like on the range, and it's going to create a network in the air that you can now connect to so that your devices can talk to each other in multicam mode. Okay, they won't be on the internet, right? They're just using the private Wi-Fi network to talk to each other. Okay. But this little setup here will run 4 to 6 hours. We've used this multiple times outdoors. It doesn't have, it can be within 10, 20, 30 feet of wherever you're, set up on the range teaching a lesson. It's an incredible little setup. And now all I do is go into my devices, select this Wi-Fi radio network. And a key cool thing here is this is Wi-Fi 6. So the Wi-Fi network that it projects has an _5G, which means it's gigabit Wi-Fi. It's incredibly fast. Okay, and this is important to get really fast, snappy usage when you're doing multicam. Because again, multicam is talking to the remote auxiliary devices, and as they record a video at 240 FPS for 5 seconds, that's a 50 megabyte file. And if you have 2 of those, you're talking 100 megabytes for every single swing that has to be transferred over the network. And this thing handles it instantly. It's incredibly fast and useful. $100, $25, and you now have a portable Wi-Fi studio. And if you want that to run all day, you can get something like this. This is a $200 Anchor portable power station, right? It's got normal plugs. It's got USB-C plugs. You guys have all seen one of these. I can take this out, plug that in. I can use this to charge my iPads, my iPhones. I can even plug in my wired network using just like I do here in the studio into the wall and plug the wired network into something like this if I really want to use a wired network somewhere remotely. So the amount of configurations and the capability to move this anywhere you want is really next level. And it's all using hardware that we use every single day. And you do not have to be a networking expert to figure this out. I showed you how many plugs you have to do. It's super easy, and it's kind of magical when you get out in the middle of a range with no internet. You have this thing running, and you're capturing simultaneous face-on down the line swings anytime.
It's awesome. I was going to add on how many coaches have reached out to us in the Q&A just saying thanks so much for what you are doing, how simple this is. I think I just changed my LinkedIn to network engineer. I think you granted me that title because it's so easy. But no, this was awesome. I'm going to hopefully reshare my screen so we can kind of just end with this, unless there's another question. Does the wired network switch need to be on the internet network, or is it its own network like the wireless? So I think the question is that private is my favorite word that you use, Gear. It's a private network for you. And then talk about the offline capabilities of Onform.
Right, right. You can use this totally offline. It does not need the internet. You don't even need the internet for the wired solution, right? The internet, the only thing that's going to bring you, obviously, is connection to the internet. And then the backup that happens from Onform to the cloud needs the internet, but you don't need to do that when you're teaching a lesson. In other words, Onform today works totally offline. You can go use it, do lessons without the internet, and when you get back to the clubhouse or your house, it will automatically synchronize all the videos up to the cloud, do the shares that you might have done. In this case, we're just using this without internet in order to create a radio network, a wireless network that the devices can talk to each other over. So it does not need internet, and you'll find that it works literally anywhere. You're not paying for a Verizon fee or anything like that.
And that's one of our favorite pieces is when the coaches are in the back of the range or a playing lesson, right? You get out on the golf course and you don't have a really good cell phone signal. You can still use Onform. Once you get to that hot spot, once you get to that internet, and it automatically starts, those pending uploads start going off, and it's just a fantastic feature. So I'm getting a lot of merci. Thank you guys. Awesome. I love it. I think these have been so helpful for our customers, Gear. It's amazing that they keep showing up to learn. And I love it. I love that our product team is continuing to develop and grow and expand into spaces like an indoor wired studio setup, right? We can take an iPad, some iPhones, and replace those legacy V1 systems, and all for a backpack price. How about that?
That's right. Try to keep it affordable. And if you want to, you don't have to use the hardware that we selected. There's lots of hardware out there that you can plug together. Obviously, these are ones that we've tested and work. Again, $50. That adapter is about $30, and that's a $10 cable. You need a few of those. So for just a couple $100, you've got an amazing studio.
Amazing. Gear, thanks so much. I appreciate you taking the time to take your studio, your office there, and wire it all up. And also thanks to our resident pro back in the background there. We appreciate Sam jumping in and helping us out and being that swing model that we all aspire to have one day. So
That's right.
Again, we are recording this. We'll have this up hopefully soon for everyone to play back. But thank you all for joining. We appreciate you taking some time out of your day to join us.